Hi YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. So first of all, sorry that I didn't post a video 2 weeks ago. I meant to, but a lot of stuff has been happening in my life, and so timing just didn't work out that day very well. I'd gotten some bad news about my dog, and just, things have just kind of gone a bit sideways. So I just didn't put a video up. So this video might end up being a bit longer than usual, and my videos are usually too long most of the time anyway, so I apologize. But I have a lot of different things I want to talk about today. Since I just mentioned Joey, my dog, I just thought let's start with that and go from there. So, as I mentioned in my previous videos, Joey's been going to the vet hospital here locally in Colorado, and he was diagnosed with a tumor, and we were getting CT scans, biopsies, and everything else. And so the final biopsy results came back, and it is an osteosarcoma, and they've decided that it's the kind of tumor that normally, apparently from all the research I've done now, usually it happens in the joints, and if it happens in the joints, they often will amputate, but his is right in his skull, and it's not like you can cut his head off. So, and it's basically it's incorporated itself into the bone, and it's been disintegrating the bone, and it's right in his jaw area and everything. So surgically removing it was not an option. It would have damaged his skull and his jaw, and it's just, he wouldn't have been able to eat or anything. So surgery was not an option. So I was given two courses of action I could do. One would be to just let him just leave him be, and he would have about 3 months, and we would do as much to make him comfortable until a point where, eventually you get to a point where there's nothing you can do to make him comfortable, and then at that point, euthanize. That was one path I could have taken. And if Joey was a much older dog, one that had been slowing down and might have had other health issues, that might have been an option. But Joey's only 8.5, he's still full of energy, he still has a lot of life in him and everything. And so the other option is giving him courses of radiation, giving him courses of chemotherapy, and they said, so instead of 3 months, that might give him 10 months, might give him more. Their conservative estimate is 10 months because, well, most of the dogs that they've seen with an osteosarcoma in the skull like this have, on average had about 10 months. So, when they say average, that means, it could be 6 months, it could be 18 months, 10 being somewhere in a conservative estimate in the middle there. Now, they have said that Joey's pretty much one of the youngest dogs they've treated, and he's in really good health otherwise, and he's, enthusiastic and bouncing. He still has his appetite and everything else, and so, there's a possibility he might go for longer than 10 months. I mean, I'm keeping my hopes up, let's put it that way. When I first got the news, it broke my heart, and I just kind of crumpled, and that's one of the reasons I didn't make a video. There was no way I could talk about it without, being overly emotional, and I just, I've had 2 weeks to process this now, and I'm in a good place, and Joey's already had his rounds of radiation, so he had 3 rounds of radiation, just rapidly, one after the other, 3 days in a row, and it's actually been helping. The tumor has actually shrunk. It's not gone entirely, but it has shrunk, because one of the things I think I mentioned was that the tumor had grown so much that it was pushing his eye out, and his eye was really bulging and everything, and we were worried about him losing his eye, or at least losing the sight in his eye. And the radiation has pulled that back quite a bit, so his eye is sitting almost at the same place where his other eye is now, and so that's good. The other benefit of the radiation is, from what I've been told and from everything I've read, is it also reduces pain. So it shrinks the tumor, and it can reduce the pain caused by the tumor. And so, giving him a longer time to live plus less pain. I mean, yes, it's expensive to treat, but at the same time, I'm like, how can I not? Condemn him to a more painful, shorter existence, or give him less pain and a longer existence. I mean, that's kind of a no-brainer, especially for a dog that's only 8.5 years old and is as lively as he is. So had his radiation. He's had 1 round of chemotherapy. A week from now, he's going in to get his blood tested to see where his white blood cell counts are, and in another week after that is his next chemo. So he's getting chemo every 3 weeks, and he's getting 4 rounds of that. So we're just going to keep going with that until that's done, and then they said that it's at 6 months, and I don't know if it's 6 months from the time they start treatment or 6 months by the time after the last treatment. I forgot to get that clarification, but in 6 months-ish, they will do another CT scan and see where he's at with the tumors and things like, is it, because it's been a very aggressive tumor. It went from nothing to this huge lump that was pushing his eye out in like 6 weeks. I mean, it was really, really fast. It was really aggressive. Thankfully, it has not invaded the rest of his body yet, and that's the other thing that we need to keep an eye on, especially at the 6 month mark. Do another CT scan and see, like, are his lungs affected? That's usually the next place that it goes. Is his heart affected? Is anything in his stomach and things, like, is it migrating and metastasizing to the rest of his body or not? If not, whether or not we want to do more radiation and chemo, or so we'll have to kind of play it by ear and everything and see where he's at. But for right now, the radiation seems to be helping quite a bit, and the chemo, and he's taken really well to the chemo. I have antibiotics that I'm giving him, but they also gave me an anti-nausea just in case, because everyone knows chemo is supposed to make you really nauseous and everything. But he has not lost his appetite. He's not been losing his food or anything, or throwing up and stuff. So I've not given him, the doctor said don't give it to him unless you think he needs it, and so far he has not had any signs of looking like he's feeling ill or anything. So I'm like, no, we'll just leave it at that. So that's the current update with Joey. I have spent over $8,000 on his treatment so far. So I think I mentioned that I was going to set up a GoFundMe to help with the bills on that, and I have. There's going to be a link down below. So if you want to help, I would appreciate anything that folks can help out with, just to kind of offset the costs that I've been spending on his treatment and everything, because it's definitely cutting a chunk out of my savings that I'm living off of right now. My novel is still selling, but it's not a bestseller, and not that I expected it to be. I don't have the resources to market it the way I would like to. So hey, you know what, that's the other thing, like, if you want to help me offset my costs, if you don't want to donate to my GoFundMe, just, buy a copy of my book. Shameless plug. So either way, if you like gay romances, you might like my book. So anyhow, so that's the update with Joey. For me, as of today, I am now 5 months on testosterone. My voice is slowly starting to drop a little bit, and with the voice thing, there's this kind of caveat with it, because yeah, I've got the testosterone, so it's obviously doing something to my vocal cords, but I also have the damn nodule on my thyroid, which is right next to my vocal cord as well, and so there's that. So there's, in terms of medical updates, I've now scheduled surgery for my thyroid in December. So December 7th is when I'm going in to have that, have the surgery. And I talked to the doctor who's going to be my surgeon, and he's like, you know what, since it's still so ambiguous, we're not sure. We know that the nodules are suspicious, but we don't know that they're cancer. It's not definitely, yes, you have cancer. It's just the it might be, maybe. So what his plan is he's going to take out that section of the thyroid that has the nodules on it. They're going to test it while I'm still under, and see whether or not it's cancer or not, specifically, because apparently they can do more tests once it's out of the body. And then if they determine it's cancer, they'll take out the entire thyroid. If they determine it's benign, then they'll go ahead and leave part of the thyroid in there and sew me up and stuff. And either way, I'm probably going to need some kind of supplements, thyroid supplements or something, medication. I don't know yet. We'll figure that out once the surgery is done. But when it comes to my voice, like, it's starting to my ear to sound a bit deeper, but at the same time it's also sounding really rough. And I talked to the doctor, and he's like, well, it could be the testosterone, or it could be the nodule, or it's probably a combination of both in terms of how rough my voice sounds right now. But it's breaking a lot too, that's definitely probably the testosterone. So it's just kind of like a mixed bag of everything right now. Besides the voice, I am seeing a little bit more and darker hair growth on my face, even though I am still shaving it. Just because it's while I'm seeing more of it and it's coming in longer and stuff, it's still pretty sparse. Most of it's still pretty blonde on my face, and so the dark hairs that are coming in are like just sprinkled in, and so it doesn't look very good to grow it out. So if you're wondering why I'm not growing out a beard yet, I'm only 5 months on T. It's gonna be at least a year before I can grow much of anything that's gonna look at all beard-like. So for the time being, I'm probably just gonna can keep myself clean shaven, because otherwise it just kind of looks sketchy and it's not great. The rest of me is getting more furry, as I mentioned before. I'm pretty much done with my menstrual cycles at this point, so I'm thrilled about that. That's something that one of the things I hated most about my body was having menstrual cycles. I've always hated having them. Anyone who has menstrual cycles hates them. I don't know if there's anyone out there that actually, except for, the odd weird person with a menstrual fetish. I know there's a small percentage of people out there that might have a fetish for it, both for other people and for having it themselves. But most of us who have had menstrual cycles, whether we are male, female, or somewhere in between, we hate them and we want them to go away. And that's one of the biggest benefits of going on testosterone, is that they slowly are stopping. And the fact that I'm also like on the cusp of menopause is I have these two factors working together. So hopefully I'm gonna be done with all of that. Acne is another thing that I'm still keeping my face from breaking out entirely and having the whole pizza effect that some trans guys have, but I am. You can see this one's pretty prominent, and I've got another one kind of coming in over here now. So I'm still fighting the whole acne thing. But other than that, yeah, I'm not really doing getting a lot of that, thankfully. You might notice that my hair is no longer purple. I spent a year with purple hair, and I really loved it. I was getting lots of compliments for the purple hair, but just the other day I was like, you know what? I'm just kind of done with the purple. I want to go back to brown. So it's a dark brown, but yeah, I just decided, you know what? It's time for me to go back to brown. I don't know. I might do purple again in the future. In terms of other wild colors, I don't think red would suit me. I tend to have a very ruddy complexion to begin with anyway, so red just would highlight that a little bit too much. I've never been a fan of the mint green or the silver gray. I mean, I'm trying to cover my gray that I'm already growing in. And the couple of times I've let it grow out a little bit, I've noticed that I'm getting quite a bit more gray, especially right in this area over here. And I'm like, no, we're gonna cover that still. I'm not ready to go gray just yet. I don't think blue suits me either. I did kind of like a powder blue for a short period of time last year before I went to purple. And it just, yeah, it doesn't suit me as well. So for now, I'm gonna just stick to various shades of brown again for the time being, and then we'll see if I decide I want to go with something more wild and crazy. Obviously today is election day, so if you're in the U.S., if you haven't voted, there's still a few more hours. Of course, by the time I post this, it might be too late, but anyway, I hope you voted. I hope you did, because this election year is so important. I can't even emphasize, especially with, me being, on the trans spectrum, and this whole thing with Trump and trying to redefine that gender is on this binary of based on your biology, and and the fact that they completely ignore intersex people. Like, we're going to determine your gender. Your gender is based off of what genitals you have between your legs at the time you're born, and that's how that, like, you're either man or a woman, and that's it. Like, really? Like, what about all the intersex people? There's like 17 different types of intersex that are recognized, I think, officially, and there might be even more out there that aren't even recognized yet. People who are XXY and YYX and all this stuff, and you can have ambiguous genitalia, and like, seriously, like, there's millions of people who are born intersex worldwide, and definitely tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, in the U.S. alone, or maybe even millions in the U.S. I don't know. I forget what the percentage of population is and stuff, so I'm not going to do math in my head right now, but there are a lot of intersex people. So even if, and that not even looking at the trans thing and the whole gender genitalia thing, it's like, biological sex is not binary. There are so many different, I mean, yes, the majority of people who are born tend to either be born with a penis or a vagina. Like, okay, fine. But there is still a lot of people, because, there's billions of people in the world, and so there's still millions of people born that don't fall between those two biological things. And then on top of that is everything when it comes to trans and genderqueer and non-binary and just all these other things where, just because a person is born with a penis between their legs doesn't necessarily mean that they identify as male, and they might be female, and I'm sorry if you don't want to recognize that. Same thing with me. It's like, okay, yes, I don't have a penis, but I do. I'm more complicated. I'm not straightforward trans where, like, yes, I'm a man. I'm trans masculine. I'm masculine leaning. And I'm kind of like, I think the closest category for me is bigender. I've mentioned this before, where I've got aspects of both. Although whether or not I've got aspects of both because I'm bigender, or I have aspects of both because I'm a gay trans male, who has some effeminate qualities. Like I said, with me it's complicated. I'm not sure. Part of the complication is the fact that while I am more male, I am still only attracted to males. Therefore, as I transition and become more male, I go from being straight passing to being gay, or perceived as gay. I tend to prefer the term androsexual because that's more clear. Androsexual meaning that I'm only attracted to men. Now, when I say men, I don't exclude trans guys. I mean, I do happen to really enjoy people with penises. However, I'm also demisexual, and so sex isn't that important to me. I'm perfectly fine using toys. And when I'm looking at a person, usually they are wearing clothing, and therefore I have no idea what's between their legs. And if I look at a person and I find them attractive, you know, I don't, you don't, when a person is completely transitioned, they're, you know, you look at them and they look like a guy. You don't necessarily know whether or not they're a cis guy who was born that way or they're a trans guy and they've transitioned that way. All I know is, hey, you're cute. And it isn't until later that you find out whether or not, you know, they're equipped or not down there. And so, you know, in my mind, when I say that I'm attracted to men, I'm attracted to men. I'm attracted to, you know, like that you physically look male. Now, that's not to say that a pre-transition trans guy isn't a man. I just wouldn't on the outset immediately find them attractive because, okay, if they're not passing yet, and not trying to discriminate against guys that aren't passing as male, it's just that in my brain, my brain just doesn't find a more feminine looking man attractive. I don't necessarily find really hyper masculine men attractive either. I don't like the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger big bulging muscles and things. I don't like that either. I tend to have a very specific kind of guy that I tend to find attractive. Misha Collins, Jensen Ackles, think of guys like that. They're not hyper masculine in terms of like their big bulky muscles and everything. They're fit, they're healthy men, but they're not like, you know, super big and bulky and muscular and all this stuff. I don't go for that look necessarily. That's a preference of mine. So Arnold Schwarzenegger I would have never found attractive regardless because I just don't like that body type. But let's say there's a lot of trans guys on YouTube. Let's see, Jamie Dodger, I don't know his full name, Jamie. There's Ty Turner, there's Chase Ross. I actually find all of them attractive. Okay, I know they're trans, but I look at them and like, they're cute guys. And they're of the type of guy that I'm attracted to in terms of they're not physically super hyper masculine, big bulky, whatever, but they're still male. They're still men, and I still find them attractive. Now they all have. Well, Chase, I don't know if Chase has a partner, but the other guys have partners and they're engaged and they're married or whatnot. And like off limits, so like, no, I'm not. I'm not gonna hit on them. I'm old enough to be their parents anyway, so never mind. I'm not a cradle robber. But see what I mean with me? It's like it's just ridiculously complicated, and I wish it weren't complicated, but at the same time, it's like, well, it is what it is. But bottom line, I'm attracted to guys, and let's just leave it at that. But yeah, so going back to with the election and everything, it's like, you know, the fact that the Trump administration wants to literally erase people like me, and once I start passing as male, you still want me to go to the women's room? Really? I mean, okay, fine, you know, like that's gonna be the interesting thing is like, you know, I'll have my ID card and it'll still say female, but I have a beard. I'm like, really? You're gonna, and how would I go through like TSA and stuff? They look at my ID and they look at me and they're like, are you the brother? Like what's going on? Because I'm not gonna match my photo anymore. And like, are they gonna force, like if I get a photo ID, are they gonna force me to shave my beard if I have a beard? before I take a photo because I don't look female enough, but I still look pretty male at that point. I mean, right now my face still looks female, and I recognize that. I mean, I think it's starting to get more masculine, but it's gonna be a while. And with my physical shape, because I'm not a skinny stick like a lot of the trans guys out there are, I've got the curves and the hips and everything, and that's going to take a while for the fat redistribution and things to happen. So if you see me physically, I still look female, even though, I mean, I'm wearing a binder so you can't see my breasts anymore, but the rest of me is still pretty hourglass shaped and pear shaped, and that's one of the other big things that gives me dysphoria, is just the shape of my body. I hate it. Always have. I've always wanted an androgynous body. I had a very androgynous body. Well, most people do when they're kids and stuff. And when I went from my kind of androgynous skinny stick form to curves when I was 13, I hated it. Always have. My thighs and my hips have always given me a lot of dysphoria, and my breasts too, to a degree, but my thighs and my hips really, I've never been comfortable with them. I always wear, not necessarily baggy jeans, but I always wear like flared out jeans. So I never wear skinny jeans because they would emphasize my hips and thighs too much. I wear jeans they're more flared, a boot cut, but kind of more of a flared boot cut, not necessarily like the 1970s, bell bottoms. But if I could find those, I'd probably wear them. But anything to de-emphasize how wide my thighs are. I mean, there's only so much you can do. I mean, if I could bind them, I would, but can't really get away with binding your thighs. You could try, but they don't make any. So there's that. So that's gonna be a while before people will look at me and think I'm passing. It's one step at a time, and I just have to be patient and get through it. I'm not gonna bother. I mean, with everything going on, I might not be able to change my gender, but if I can, because I've been waiting to change my legal name. I'm not really changing my first name because it's kind of a gender neutral name to begin with, but my last name I want to change, just because it's kind of a long name. It's hyphenated between my maiden name and my husband's name, and especially after he passed and I had to do all the paperwork for his estate, and I had to sign the damn name so many times and write it out and everything, and I'm kind of over it. I'm just really over it. And so I've decided I'm taking 3 letters from each of the names, my name and his name, switching them around and then sticking them together and making a shorter single name out of it. So I want to do that. I want to legally change the name. But at the same time, if I can, change my gender marker, and I'm gonna wait until I'm perceived as more passing than I am now, which I'm not right now. I'm facially, I'm still too feminine, and while my voice is starting to drop, it's still kind of feminine, and physically, the rest of me really is, it's gonna take a while before everything kind of settles into place and I start looking enough more masculine enough to get away with it. And so I figure I'll wait, and I can do the gender marker change and I can do the name change and everything all at the same time, that way, because I mean, like, the gender marker change won't necessarily change on my credit cards and that kind of thing, but on my ID it's going to change. So if I'm going to change my ID anyway, why change it twice? Might as well change it once and just do that. Same thing for my passport and just, all of the important documents and things. So that's a ways out yet. But my first name, I mean, it is spelled in a way that is used for both male and female worldwide, and so the full legal name. I had thought of just shortening it up legally to the shortened version of the name, but I've decided, no, I'm just gonna leave the longer name, the longer first name, and then depending on how I feel, because my shortened version that I use now tends to be more feminine in the U.S., but it is used for males in other countries in Europe and Israel and that kind of thing. So, and you know, you guys, not everyone knows my name, but my name is Gabriel or Gabrielle, or in German it's Gabriele is the proper pronunciation. It only has one L and an E at the end, and because of the one L instead of two L's, a lot of people think it's male. It's the male name, but in Europe it's for both. In the U.S. it's kind of perceived more masculine, which is cool. And so for years I've gone by Gabby. The German pronunciation would be Gabi. And I actually know two guys who go by Gabi as their shortened version of their name, and they actually spell their first name the same way I do, with the E at the end. But one is from Europe and the other one's from Israel, and so in the U.S. Gabby tends to be considered a female name. I've never been a huge fan of Gabe though, which is the male shortened equivalent in the U.S. I've been playing around with using Gabe on one social media site lately just to see how I feel about it, and I'm still not sure. I'm still kind of going back and forth between Gabby and Gabe, or maybe I'll just do Gab or Gabs or Gabster, or I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But I'm not doing a major name change like I'm going from Stephanie to David or something of that nature. I'm perfectly happy with my name. Still trying to play around with the nickname and stuff like that, but otherwise Gabriel or Gabrielle or whatever. Gabriele. Americans can't pronounce that name properly. I've had some people try and it just sounds wrong, so I'm like, just do Gabrielle, that's fine. Or Gabriel, or whatever. I'm not super picky about the name. Where some trans people, it's for some trans people it's very dysphoria triggering, and I can understand that. For me, it's not, and so I'm like, whatever. But for me, the biggest change is going to be the last name, and then for completely different reasons and everything. So, anyhow, so that's pretty much my update from the last month and everything that's been going on. And let's see, in 2 weeks from now, the biggest thing is just maybe like an update for Joey and how he's doing and stuff. But everything's doing well. I did Vlogmas last year for Christmas. I don't know if I'll do it this year or not, so we'll see. I am doing NaNoWriMo again this year, and I'm writing my next novel, and I'm hoping my next novel will be edited and ready to publish probably next March, April, just based on how long, because with the Coffee to Go that I just published, I wrote that earlier this year. I did not write it for NaNoWriMo, and it took me 2 to 3 months to write, and then another 3 to 4 months to edit. And so, if I can get the new novel, which the working title is Soul Surprise, I'm not really happy with that right now. So we'll see if I change that or not. But if I can get the first draft completely written in November, then I'm hoping by March or April of next year that I can get it published and get it out there, and then just dive into the next novel after that. Because my goal is to get at least 2, maybe 3 romance novels published each year, and then I still have my sci-fi novel that I'm still working on, which right now is on the back burner. I've kind of pushed it aside for now. I want to try and focus on these novels that I can self-publish and get out there and start generating some income and stuff, especially since I just shut down my business, my consulting business, I just kind of lost interest in the whole web analytics thing. I'd been doing it for a decade as an independent consultant, and 5 years before that as part of the tech job I had. And the industry is changing and evolving and growing, which is great and wonderful, but it's getting much more technical, and especially for consultants, it was getting where they were looking for more developer, technical and developer consultants, and less of people on the analysis side, people looking at the data and doing data analysis and things. They're doing that more in-house, and in terms of in-house stuff, all of the in-house jobs, they don't want you to work remotely, they want you to work on site, and they want you to relocate, and I don't want to relocate. I would prefer to work from home, and I don't know, the industry has changed to the point where it just wasn't a good fit for what I need or want for myself. And being a novelist is definitely more of where my passions lie right now. And I'm hoping that will continue for a while. If I can continue working on novels and things for the next decade or two, that'll get me into my retirement years, and hopefully I'll continue writing even once I've retired and stuff. Now, whether or not I go back to just writing fan fiction, or if I continue producing novels that are published, we'll see. I am still writing fan fiction. I do have a fan fiction story going on right now that I've put on hold until I'm done with NaNoWriMo. It's another Dragon Age story because I happen to like them. One thing I've noticed with my writing, especially with my fan fiction writing, is when I started off writing, I was writing a lot of I read a lot of smut. I'm not ashamed to admit that. I read a lot of smut. Not everything I've written is smut. About 2/3 to 3/4 of my fan fiction stories are, pretty much straight up smut. But some of my stories are more just kind of little cute little romances, and are rated G or rated T for teen, that kind of thing. But most of my stuff is explicit. That being said, when I started writing, I was writing a lot of kind of fluff pieces. They're very fluffy and cute and romantic and sweet. The last 6 months to a year or so, I've been writing a lot more dark stuff. A lot of non-consensual rape type of scenarios, and things like that. Not entirely sure why my brain's going there, but it is, and it's a story that wants to get out, and so I'm writing it. And because I post them online, and I make sure I tag them, because I don't want to trigger people and stuff. So I hate people who write really dark, disturbing stuff, but then they don't tag it because, I don't want to give away the plot. I'm sorry, that's bullshit. It's wonderful to write. I don't know if it's wonderful to write, but it's wonderful. You've got this creative energy, and you want to get the story out and everything else. But if you're writing really dark, disturbing stuff, tag it. Some people will enjoy it, and some people, and in fact, tagging it that way, it's going to attract the people who enjoy reading that stuff, and it's going to, people who don't enjoy reading that stuff, they're going to click away from it, and that's perfectly fine. I don't see why you need to try and keep it secret. And to be perfectly honest, I actually wish we would do that with actual published novels as well. I don't necessarily advocate putting trigger warnings on the covers of every book or anything, but I think if we can come up with a system of icons that everyone could recognize, so there's an icon for suicide, there's an icon for rape, there's an icon for graphic violence and graphic, like gore and that kind of thing. All these different types of things that could potentially trigger somebody. Because a lot of people have different types of PTSD type triggers, some that they might even be aware of until they read it, and then all of a sudden, and I say, we come up with these icons, everyone recognizes what the icons are, and you put them on the last page of the book. so that for people who need a trigger warning, they know to look at the last page of the book, see what the potential triggers are, and use that to decide whether or not they want to, dive into the book or not. And for people who don't care or don't want to know, they don't have to go to the back of the book and look. They can just ignore it. So I think that would be a great idea. And no, it's not a snowflake thing or whatever. There are a lot of people out there, they suffer from depression, they suffer from this anxiety, they suffer from PTSD, from childhood abuses, or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of mental health is a huge thing right now, and not triggering people, I think is important. And and along the same vein is like some people really want to read about this kind of stuff, and so it might hey, I want to, I'm specifically looking for books that have graphic violence. So it has the graphic violence trigger. Perfect. This is what I want to read. So it's both. It can be both a warning, if you're sensitive to this, don't read this. But at the same time, it's hey, if you're interested in reading these dark, disturbing things, hey, have at it. And these little icons will tell you that this book will contain this. It doesn't necessarily give you a spoiler necessarily as much as, hey, this book contains this stuff. And you don't always know this. I mean, you've got the blurb on the back and everything, and it could hopefully pull you in to wanting to read the book. But knowing a few other little tidbits like that can sometimes, interest you or not in a work as well. So, okay, I told you this was going to be a longer video, and I'm just rambling on all sorts of topics today. All right, I will cut this video off at this point, and I will hopefully see you in a couple of weeks, and hopefully there's not going to be any more bad news about anything. If I come back in 2 weeks, I won't have my surgery yet, because that's not for another 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's a while. Anyhow, until next time, take care. Bye.